All right, Tulsi fans, aloha from the rain-soaked west coast of Florida. My name is Dave, and welcome to Save America, Vote Tulsi Gabbard. I am your flawed and humble host. Here I am, NPR, another propaganda channel, and they've been propaganda for decades, and now they're taking money from sponsors. And who's sponsoring this particular article? Northrop Grumman? Raytheon? This portion of, what do they call that? Reliable Sources? Or whatever show they used to have. I remember they had all of these catchy names for their shows. Well, anyway, this hour is being sponsored by Raytheon. And anyway, the article here says, which U.S. wars were justifiable? Which ones were justifiable? Tulsi Gabbard names only World War II. And there's Tulsi right there. You know what's interesting here? Check this picture out. I think that's Tulsi's sister right there. Look at what's in the background. Biden. There's a Biden person back here walking behind Tulsi Gabbard. Maybe they were convinced when they met Tulsi that they ought to switch their allegiance from Biden to Tulsi. Or maybe because, Tulsi apologized for Joe Biden's behavior, or at least stuck up for the fact that, she doesn't believe he's a racist. Maybe they sent some extra personnel up to New Hampshire. I don't know. Who knows? But look, Tulsi Gabbard had me at anti-war. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this ridiculous article because it's all gotcha. It's so Tulsi, you don't think war is a good idea? Well, tell us what wars were justifiable. And then they're going to go down the list and they're going to pick that apart. Here's my PowerPoint. It's called a Google Doc. This video, by the way, which is being sponsored by Google, that is if they keep me monetized. And if they don't, then you've got Patreon, and then you've got my email, which is out there. If you want to do a one-time PayPal donation, maybe I'll stick that in the description of this video. So Tulsi Gabbard had me at anti-war. She had me. She already had done. Identity politics? Nope. Anti-war? Yes. Why does this matter to working class people? This is what you get all the time. Well, this isn't really going to help the working class people of America. In fact, if we're not engaged, hey, you know what happens when you get engaged to something or someone? You eventually get married to it. Yeah. And we've been married to somebody or a few countries. We've been married to Afghanistan now for almost 20 years. I think it's time to file a divorce. Yeah, divorce papers. You know what I'm saying? Don't get engaged because you'll eventually get married. All right? Just a tip from a married man here who's happily married. I'm not married, although there is a bit of war in our household. So I can't say that the analogy is completely flawed. But it's more like friendly fire. All right? Okay, I think I got out from under that one. So anyway, why does this matter to working people? Well, Tulsi Gabbard understands that war takes money and resources away from people. Duh. Less money for people who don't live near military bases or military contractors. Like these guys. These guys are taking money from military contractors. The folks over at NPR. You betcha. So they're gonna try to play gotcha with the anti-war stuff with Tulsi Gabbard. War is part of our culture now. You can't turn on a television show, especially these cop shows or the shows, and I'm guilty. I watch a lot of this stuff, and it's entertainment, but it's so pro-military, and it doesn't ever question why we're doing this particular activity in said country. It's on TV. It's in video games. My son is always showing me the latest in video game culture, and it's always warrior-based stuff. It's always, which isn't all bad, but it's now become really just an automatic. Like, yeah, this is how we're going to train our kids because this is probably going to be their future. And then, kids, they'll join the military because when they were a kid, they were playing these war games on TV, and I don't know. It's just overhyped, overglorified. It's become a rather unhealthy component to American life. Here's a good one. War makes enemies out of indifferent or neutral countries. Naked aggression is eventually going to create tension and hatred where there was none. Okay? 9/11. Look at the roots of what happened. Even if you don't believe, people believe all kinds of crazy conspiracies about 9/11. I say the United States had a role in it. And the role isn't like we hijacked the planes and we flew them into buildings. We certainly helped fund these people. And then if you go back even further, why they were angry and who they were and so forth, is all related to the way we interact with countries, mostly in the Middle East. It's just the way we've been doing things for decades. Anyway, that's a whole other video and a different channel for that matter. Endless wars prevent us from partnering with countries on things like trade and climate change. Yep. You're not going to... Hey, anybody who's for fixing climate change, if you're also for endless wars, you're not going to fix climate change. Just throwing it out there. And Tulsi Gabbard knows this, and that's why she says this every time she gives a stump speech. The wars that are supposedly aimed at regimes typically affect the citizenry more than the regime that is being targeted. Think about that. It's not the people in power. It's not the regime change people that were we got to get rid of this guy. Yeah, instead we're going to get rid of a bunch of citizens permanently. Yeah, no. This is another reason why war is a bad idea. Again, you make these countries destabilized, and wars and sanctions have caused the current migration crisis. So, if you're wondering why all these people keep showing up at our southern border and all over the world for that matter, where migration has gone completely crazy, lack of a better word, wars and sanctions do that. Okay? People just don't want to pick up and start walking hundreds of miles. It's not anything that I know that I wouldn't want to do that, but some people believe they have no choice. The war machine benefits the rich and powerful who have large stakes in the companies that profit from war. The poor and middle classes get nothing from war. Some get a job with the military that often leads to physical and emotional disability or trauma. People will take a job in the military because they don't have any other economic opportunities, and then they're left with a life of physical and emotional trauma, if not a full-fledged disability. We've got homeless veterans on the street. This system doesn't seem like it's working too well. The income derived is often meager compared to what is offered in other lines of work. The money spent on war should be invested in vocational training. Imagine, I live in Florida. It's like 95 degrees and 100% humidity every day, starting like in the middle of March, and sometimes we get a break in January, for about a month. So we have a bit of an HVAC industry here, and these guys are on call 24/7, and with climate change, it's only going to get more persistent. So there is a huge deficit of people who are in jobs like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and construction. They're building a lot of houses down here because people still want to escape the so-called cold weather, but I think in a couple of years, Canada might be a better place to live. I don't know. The media has become obsessed with promoting war as it's good for ratings. It generates profits for them. In the meantime, Many less glamorous stories like what happened in Flint, Michigan, which is still going on. There's a water crisis in Flint, Michigan, in case you didn't know. Jordan Chariton has covered this. He's the guy who runs Status Quo. He's a real journalist. Just want to throw that out there. He actually goes out and does journalism, so good for him. In any event, political candidates are now expected to be engaged. Again, when you get engaged, you'll eventually get married on the world stage, or they are looked at as naive or sympathetic to dictators. Oh, I love this. You're cozying up to Assad? You think Putin isn't a bad guy? No, I just want a future for our country and our world. So being antagonistic to every so-called adversary is eventually going to get a whole bunch of people killed for no reason. Again, this takes away from issues like affordable housing, education, the environment, and a plethora of real struggles working Americans encounter. Because, when we wake up in the morning, we want to see how the war is doing so we can check our 401k. And there are people that do that in the United States. Definitely. You and I probably don't know them because we're not in the same, at least I'm not in the same class as they are. But they look at, the war machine as a profit. It's kind of like I look at how many views I get on a video. I just made another 5 cents. By putting anti-war at the top of her agenda, Tulsi Gabbard understands our most important systemic problem. Every other issue is downstream from this one. Not to mention that most of these wars are unconstitutional. Oh, unconstitutional. Wow, he's really throwing out, yeah, and that's a big one for you libertarians and conservatives out there who are, gung-ho and Marco Rubio people. Oh, there's no more insane person right now in government or in whatever, in the Senate than Marco Rubio. Every time we are about, and also Lindsey Graham is right up there too, but Rubio is just obsessed with regime change war. He is absolutely insane about it. And Tulsi Gabbard is the exact opposite. So like I said, she had me at anti-war, despite what NPR is going to do here in this. And again, I didn't read it, just the headline alone. Hey, Tulsi, tell us which one is okay, because we want to know. Our sponsors want to know. Northrop Grumman wants to know which war you approve of. Are you going to be really that bad if you become president? Because these companies are all going to tank, and we're all going to celebrate when these companies tank. And I'm sorry, you're going to have to find different work if we actually elect a candidate, a president who believes in less military intervention. We're still going to have a military. It's not like the military is going to go away. We're just going to have a more proportionate military. So there you go. There's my cutting edge video on how and why Tulsi Gabbard had me at anti-war. See you soon.